So as we just heard, negotiators from the United States and Ukraine completed roughly 4 hours of talks in Florida. And U.S. officials are also set to head to Russia on Monday. For more on this, we're joined today by Robert English, Director of Central European Studies at the University of Southern California. Professor English, thanks for coming in today.
It's my pleasure to join you.
So the U.S. and Ukrainian negotiators completed their talks in Florida, and U.S. Secretary of State Rubio said he sees progress, but more work is needed to reach a deal. What are your thoughts on this?
My first thought is that we have very few details, and that's a good thing. Because in the past, at every stage of discussion of this shuttle diplomacy, there have been leaks, there have been public proclamations, and efforts to rally the public behind one or another position to pressure the negotiators in one way or another. And that's very destructive. That gets in the way of the negotiators working out a comprehensive proposal. So the very fact that we don't know the details on these key security provisions, strangely, is a good thing. And it means that they're finally working quietly and professionally. Right,
and the plan put forward by the Trump administration quite alarmed Ukraine officials, and the original draft heavily favored Russia, right? What do we know so far about the updated plan, and what key details still need to be agreed upon between Washington and Kyiv?
Yeah, the updated plan is slimmed down. The latest version we knew about had 20, not 28 points. And so they put aside a lot of the business and financial aspects and reconstruction elements. And the core provisions are those that they're negotiating about now. Those would be the amount of territory that Ukraine will cede to Russia. Will they stop where they are now? Or will Ukraine have to give up even more, as Moscow's insisting? Secondly, security guarantees, right? That means if Ukraine is not going to be a member of NATO in the near future, what kind of support and where will it be based can it get from its Western allies? And the third would be the size of the Ukrainian military itself. Caps of 600, caps of 800,000 soldiers have been discussed, and that will be a key provision. Where they are now, we're not sure.
Right, and as for Russia, Putin earlier said it's ready for serious discussions about the draft proposals. What might be discussed when Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff and his son-in-law Jared Kushner travel to Moscow?
Well, that is when we'll see if they've been able to narrow the two sides' positions. If the Ukrainians are conceding on the territorial issue, on the security forces issue, if they're conceding enough to Russia's demands that Putin can meet them halfway. Or instead, will he continue these maximalist demands, which mean the meeting could be a failure? And unfortunately, I expect a very hard line from Putin. I don't expect anything in the way of flexibility because he's convinced that Russia is slowly winning on the battlefield. So that if these talks fail, and we have to wait 4 months, 6 months to resume talks, he'll actually be in a stronger position. He's convinced that he wins and Ukraine loses if the war goes on another 4, 5, 6 months. So he will not be giving much in the way of concessions.
I see. And, a lot of European leaders were blindsided by President Trump's original 28-point plan to end the war, and they fear being left out of the peace talks. What diplomatic steps have they taken so far and are ready to take to stay involved?
The Europeans, as you say, have been pushed to the sidelines, and I think Trump is committed to keeping them there. His most recent comments are almost scornful of the Europeans, and his attitude seems to be, I've heard your position, I've heard what you want us to do, now keep quiet, I am negotiating directly with Putin and with the Ukrainians. That's Trump's attitude in a nutshell. And indeed, the Europeans have no great leverage here. Of course, the United States is the main backer of Ukraine in terms of weapons. We are the great superpower confronting the Russian nuclear power. and Europe can only advise from the sidelines, but it cannot insist on anything. It can issue public statements. It can urge Trump and the Americans to stand up stronger for Ukraine, but it can't make the Americans do anything. And so, yeah, there's a lot of frustration on the part of Europe. And I might add that they're frustrated at Ukraine as well, because this enormous corruption scandal, coming on the heel of other corruption scandals, makes it harder for the leaders in Germany, in France, in England to go to their own people and say, we need to keep financing, supporting Ukraine. When so much money is apparently being wasted, that becomes more difficult. So there's a lot of pressure on Ukraine to make most of the concessions, even from its European allies.
Right, absolutely. We'll have to see how that goes. Professor English, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.